Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine a world where your mind, everything that makes your memories, your personality, even your consciousness could be copied.
Copied from your brain.
Exactly, and uploaded into, say, a computer system. Sounds like pure sci-fi, right?
Totally. But it's actually a concept that real neuroscientists and futurists, too, are seriously exploring.
Right. So today we're doing a deep dive into this idea of mind uploading. We've got a stack of articles, research papers, notes you've shared with us.
Yeah, quite a bit of material.
And our mission really is to cut through the hype, the speculation, and figure out what the sources say this process might actually involve. The absolutely massive hurdles.
That are huge.
And, what could it all mean for the future? Could your mind live on digitally?
That's the big question, isn't it? The core idea, fundamentally, is taking that incredibly complex thing inside your skull.
The brain, yeah.
And somehow digitizing it. The sources, they talk about transferring or copying your cognitive functions, your awareness, your entire mental life, basically.
Into a digital framework.
Precisely. And the ultimate goal, as presented in a lot of this material, it's achieving a kind of digital immortality, existing outside the biological body.
So you'd be pure information, living, potentially, forever, maybe in some kind of simulated world.
That's the vision. And the research suggests this digital version would ideally keep its self-awareness, memories, personality.
Even desires. The ability to interact.
Yeah, interact within a digital world that could be, well, incredibly detailed. But, and this is a key point from the sources right away, this digital life isn't necessarily some guaranteed paradise.
Ah, okay. So it's not just upload and you're good.
Exactly. What's really fascinating is the emphasis placed on the quality of that simulation. Our sources really highlight that just existing as data, well, it might not be enough.
Not enough how?
Well, for a digital consciousness to remain stable, to not, degenerate, it would likely need a simulation that's rich enough. It needs to mimic the kind of sensory feedback, the physical feedback we get constantly.
Sight, sound, touch.
All of it. Even proprioception, that sense of where your body is in space. Without that.
It's like sensory deprivation, but maybe way worse.
Kind of, yeah, like sensory deprivation on steroids. If your digital self is just floating in some abstract void, without inputs that feel real, the sources suggest it could be incredibly damaging.
Leading to what? Like cognitive instability?
Or even a complete breakdown of consciousness. It raises this really important question from the material. Can a human-like consciousness actually thrive or even survive without that rich, constant input our physical senses give us? So the papers argue that a successful upload probably needs more than just capturing the brain's data. It needs pairing with an ultra-realistic digital environment.
It's a simulated body.
A simulated body that can interact convincingly with that environment. The fidelity, the realism of that simulation seems absolutely critical.
Because even small glitches could mess things up.
Potentially in a big way. Minor distortions in, say, simulated perception could have profound negative effects on the digital mind.
Okay, so the destination, the digital world, needs to be incredibly sophisticated. But getting there, actually doing the upload.
Yeah.
How do the sources say we even start capturing something as complex as a brain?
Yeah, this is where the scale of the challenge just becomes, well, truly mind-boggling, according to the material we looked at. Step one involves creating an incredibly detailed map.
A map of your specific brain.
Exactly, a dynamic map. Essentially a snapshot of its entire state right at the moment of upload.
We're talking, what? Mapping all the neurons?
All 86 billion neurons, yes. But maybe even more importantly, the trillions of connections between them, the synapses.
Trillions. What?
And understanding how those connections are constantly changing, firing in real time, it's not static.
And the sources are pretty clear, right? Current tech is nowhere near this for a human brain.
Not even remotely close. We have detailed maps of like super simple nervous systems, a nematode worm, C. elegans. It has just 302 neurons. We know that map well.
Okay, a worm is one thing, a human brain.
It's orders of magnitude more complex. We can map sections of mouse brains in detail now, which is amazing progress. But imaging a living, dynamic human brain at the cellular or subcellular level needed for this, it's far beyond us.
And there's a catch, isn't there? One paper mentioned that getting the resolution you'd need often requires techniques that damage or destroy the tissue.
Right. Which isn't exactly helpful if you're trying to upload a living mind.
So it's not just the structure, you need the function too.
Precisely.
Yeah.
The research really emphasizes this. It's not just a static wiring diagram. The brain isn't just parts, it's a dynamic system.
Constantly changing.
Constantly. A successful upload would need to capture not just the structure, but the function, how individual neurons behave, how clusters work together to make thoughts, feelings, consciousness itself.
There was an analogy in one article, like needing a map of a city.
Yeah, not just the blueprint, but a map of every single interaction happening within it at every single moment. Cars moving, people talking, signals changing.
That's daunting. And do we even know what level of detail is actually needed? Is it every synapse, every molecule inside the neuron?
Or could it even involve quantum stuff like some of the more, let's say, speculative sources suggest?
Yeah.
The honest answer, based on the material, is we just don't know. We literally cannot currently replace even one biological neuron with an artificial one that functions identically inside a living system.
So how can we simulate the whole thing?
It raises a critical point some researchers brought up. Are we even sure we understand the fundamental bits of consciousness or thought well enough to know what data we need to capture in the first place?
Right. We might be trying to copy something without fully knowing what it is.
Exactly.
So given these huge gaps technology, fundamental understanding, how do the sources rate our chances? When might this happen?
Well, there's a really wide spectrum, interestingly enough. You've got some futurists. Ray Kurzweil is often cited in the material.
He's optimistic, usually.
Very. He maintains predictions that mind uploading could be feasible relatively soon, maybe around the middle of this century. He links it to accelerating trends in AI, computing power, the singularity idea.
But what about the neuroscientists, the people actually working on mapping brains?
Yeah, the research papers and the working neuroscientists cited are much, much more cautious. There is one perception specialist mentioned in the notes who's highly skeptical of those near-term timelines.
How skeptical?
Like, arguing that based on the current rate of progress in brain mapping and actually understanding consciousness, we are likely centuries away.
Centuries, not decades.
Maybe not within 100 years, perhaps closer to 200 years or even more.
200 years. Okay, that definitely pushes it way out.
It suggests that while the theoretical idea is, there, the practical engineering challenges are just orders of magnitude greater than many popular accounts really acknowledge.
So the scientific consensus, reading between the lines of the research papers,
leans heavily towards a very, very distant future for realistic whole brain uploading.
200 years. Yet, despite that kind of timeline, the enthusiasm, the money, isn't waiting, is it? The sources mention significant funding flowing into related areas.
Oh, absolutely. Despite those long scientific estimates, there's immense private investment happening. You see tech billionaires funding longevity research, advanced brain-computer interfaces.
Things like Neuralink,
for example, and funding AI systems capable of complex simulation. The drive seems to be that incredible potential reward, digital immortality.
And the material suggests whoever does crack this first, well, it could fundamentally change everything, what it means to be human.
Right. It could potentially create a new digital species, or at least a new form of existence.
It frames the next frontier, not just as, say, extending biological life,
but transcending it, moving into a synthetic realm entirely.
What's fascinating here, though, is how this whole idea, something that used to be just in movies.
Right, like The Matrix or Ghost in the Shell.
It forces us to confront really fundamental questions about ourselves. Questions the concept makes unavoidable, really.
Yeah.
Like, is yourself just information, something that could be copied or moved?
Can identity, emotion, subjective experience, can all that truly be boiled down to data points and computation?
And even if you could make a perfect digital copy, would that digital you truly feel like you? Or would it just be something else entirely? A simulation that thinks it's you?
The philosophical rabbit hole is deep on this one, and the science, as we've said, just isn't there yet. The sources show real skepticism about realistic timelines for a full functional upload.
Especially since we still don't fully grasp consciousness itself.
Exactly. But the vision, it's undeniably powerful. And the momentum, with significant funding behind it and the sheer scale of what's at stake, it is building. It really makes you think about the future.
And about what we even mean by you.
So here's something that maybe leave you pondering, something straight from the implications raised in this deep dive. If the mind can potentially be scanned, stored, edited, even transferred like data, what happens to the concept of a soul? Does it just disappear in this digital future?